Something's going wrong in the neighborhood. Why do we see further than we should? All around us, people unaware, lied to and deceived without a care. There simply is no curve in sight, and you know we don't spin all day and night. It seems they want our minds flooded with lies. If you want to bust the globe, I know these guys. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Globebusters! Globebusters!
Who you gonna call when the horizon flattens out? Go ahead, call them up, see what that's about. We can go around in circles trying to find the south, but if you're looking for the truth, better find it out. NASA can't go to space, so we hit the roof.
Get it?
Hit the roof. It all came to light with 200 proof.
Whoa,
I'm just really sick of people lying to me. When I tell the truth, don't come crying to me. Pick up the phone, get on the line with me. Line with me. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
Globebusters! Globebusters! Globebusters!
Wow. Was that incredible or what, guys? Absolutely awesome. Okay, well, welcome everybody to our Globebusters live show. I am your host of 104, Bob, and we have the privilege of actually having Amber Plaster and her husband Tony do our song for us live today, and we are absolutely thrilled that they could do that. So give it up one more time for Amber and Tony. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do today, guys, we have a short presentation that Ira is going to be doing, but, we'll turn back the feedback a little bit.
And I think I have my mic a little louder.
Oh, that might be it. Okay. So Ira has a short presentation that he's going to do, and we're going to do something that we don't typically do during the Globebuster show. Occasionally we'll take phone calls, but what we want to do today is we're going to take some Q&As from the audience, because I think all of us have done or will be doing presentations and have done presentations individually. So you'll be able to see our individual thoughts and stuff like that. But today we're going to do Q&As after Iru does his presentation. So let me go ahead and let the guys say a couple words to you and introduce who they are. Of course, I am Bob. And Jeran and I started Globebusters about 4 years ago. And we never thought in a million years it would turn into this, which is pretty incredible. But, you know, Jeran called me up one day and said, hey, let's just answer some questions. And, you know, it really kind of caught on. It was really popular. So we're just thrilled that you know, we're still able to do it. So let me let Jeran introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself. And we'll go down the panel, and then we'll let Ira start his presentation. So, Jeran, take it away, sir.
All right. Thanks, Bob. I'm doing excellent. And yourself? No. Thank you, guys. It's been awesome, and I'm just really happy that a lot of you have made us a part of your Sunday. It really means a lot, and we're just a couple guys who like to get together and have a little chat on Sundays, and it's kept growing. I don't know if people have noticed, but Globebusters is now topped 50,000 subscribers. Thank you. Which is just really, you know, unbelievable. We never would have imagined this in 1,000 years. And like Bob said, it just started out as, hey, Bob, you want to take some calls and talk online tonight? And boy, has it grown from there. And we've had some people come and go. And, you know, big shout out to John the Morgile. You know, he was awesome on the show. Everybody loves John. Yeah. we've just had so many people, and you know, Kurt from Curious Life, and if you don't follow his channel, please subscribe to Curious Life. He does great work, and he's kind of come and gone as well. But yeah, it's just been great, and I can't say thank you to everyone enough, and I can't say thank you enough to Bob. Bob really does a fantastic job. It's not easy to put together the show, and he wanted to take it down a scientific route, and I said, well, yeah, if you want to run the show, you know, find the guests, do what you want to do, set the agenda, and he does more than that. And I just can't say thank you enough, Bob. You've done a great job for Flat Earth and for Globebusters. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, all right, so I guess we'll step over to Ben, and Ben is the newest addition to our team. He has done some fabulous work. Of course, you know his channel is Taboo Conspiracy, and we invited Ben on, I don't know, it's been a few months back now, and we're really happy to have him on. He is one of the instrumental people in Flat Earth as far as we're concerned, and we are just thrilled to have him on. So Ben, tell him a little bit about yourself and what you think about Flat Earth, sir.
Well, first of all, I am the quiet Globebuster. I'm a bit shy, so this is all kind of overwhelming for me. But I am a family guy. I'm married. I have 5 children. Just had a new baby, and I am so happy to be. It's an absolute honor to be with the Globebusters. I've watched their channel for, you know, how many years now? We're near 5 years, and it's been amazing. I just hope that we all together, that we can all just, not just us, but everyone here can help bust that globe, because it needs to be.
All right, beautiful. All right. And last but certainly not least, and he is not upside down today because he has come up from Argentina.
I get self-oriented now.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. It's gravity-based, you know, something like
That's
that.
right. He's gotten adjusted to the gravity in North America here. So anyway, you're Landucci, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me on. I think it's still a little loud, but we can go if don't mind. Well, thank you everyone for for having me on. I always feel like a guest in this kind of conference, maybe because I am on the other side of the world, but for me it's a pleasure, and it's also, like I always say, like a dream come true. For me, it's like a band, you know. I used to be fan of Globebuster, and now participate in the show is like something unreal for me. So thank you so much, Bob, Jeran, you know, Morgan, and everyone for this opportunity. I want to try to, you know, we talk about this with Bob and Jeran, and try to, I don't have my own presentation in terms of, I share my presentation with a friend of mine from the Spanish community, but I like to address very quickly and briefly the topic about this kind of idea or concept that if we have a dome or the firmament or solid glass dome or this kind of topic. And during my years of research, I came across with, you know, few ideas that maybe can give us like a big picture of maybe what's going on up there. Because if you go and trying to reach the edge, right, in terms of level edge, you know, like Antarctica, immediately you're going to find that all that is militarized, all right, and you don't have free access, and of course there is no edge of the world, right? But when we talk about going down, it's really difficult. We all know the super deep Kola hole as a test. That is the furthest that we can go. But we're not trying to talk about what is up there. There start to make a little confused, or at least, you know, the images that the Space Agency provide us is all CGI. After 100 kilometers, nobody knows what happened up there. So I'm going to try to put some new ideas that maybe could help to understand what's going on up there. We have the screen of my computer to share, okay? So, first of all, in terms of if you go to ancient cultures, talking about this magnetic field of energy that surrounds us and keep us, you know, in control, This is the depiction of this onion-style magnetic force that cover us, our entire plane of existence. This is the Shirshantra, which is an ancient concept, came from Vedas. But if you go to you know, modern style, if you want to see in that way, you can see it. This magnetic field, how it's produced in real life, this dome style field of energy. This is a ferrocell with a magnetic in the center, with a magnet in the center, and you can see what the ancient concept became more real, and you can really appreciate in real life. That is the idea behind this short video. Of course, we can think in terms, we can see not just in terms of the magnetic field, but we all understand, maybe if you go to the Tesla kind of concept of the universe, you can see that electricity is play a huge role because magnetism and electricity are both the same thing, different pole of the same coin, if you want to see in that way. And of course, you can transfer that concept not just in our plane, but even in every living being on the planet, on the plane, right? Because that is maybe what is the concept behind, controlling the torus, the dome, the toroidal field. It's every living being has their own magnetic electrical field. So that is just very briefly the concept behind this electromagnetic dome. But
and let me say
yeah.
real quick, I mean, the human chakra system, which many people are probably very familiar with, is essentially a series of toroidal fields that surround the human body. It's a very real energetic field. So this is something that surrounds living creatures around our Earth itself, and many, many things actually exhibit these type of fields. So, in fact, my wife just did a really good presentation on this in the other room, so I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but this is something that in nature is replete. I mean, it's everywhere. So, to apply this to the Earth, and as far as what Ira is going to be talking about here, I think is very realistic. I mean, even the mainstream will acknowledge that, we have this huge magnetic field that shields us from, solar radiation and all kinds of space radiation that's coming in. It's kind of our protector. But I think in the flat Earth concept, it kind of takes on another meaning, and that's kind of where Ira's going with this.
Yeah. So there is a very, very nice piece of rocket launch which take place November 6th of 2015. It came from the Up Aerospace company, which is a branch of the Go Fast guys that, I assume that everyone knows the Go Fast rocket, and the idea that hit the dome at the beginning of the flat Earth research, everyone believed that the rocket hit something, but it just the yo-yo, the spin mechanism that the rocket has to self-orient it in space and, stop spinning and getting crazy. But the same guys, they've been contracted by NASA after that rocket launch, and they launched this other one, which has something very special because they put the data that it's coming from the rocket. Of course, the rocket reached only 120 kilometers, and let's take a look and see what is the data that is coming from there. So here is the altitude, the outside air temperature, and the airspeed, right? And look at the temperature, how it starts going down very quickly. And when it reaches the maximum altitude, you're going to see something really interesting. This is in Fahrenheit degrees, by the way, right? And they activate the spin mechanism. Then they cut off their feed, right? They editing this because it's supposedly for Red Bull or something like that. The GoPro advertising. But look at now the temperature outside.
Wow.
it's almost 0 Kelvin degrees. So that contradicts all the thermosphere model that NASA is present us, or the Space Agency present us as something that you go higher, you're gonna reach a gradient of lower temperature, and then suddenly it's gonna start to rise up and you know, take these measurements about 200 Celsius degrees, something like that in the thermosphere. But this rocket reached the 120 kilometer and almost reached 0 Kelvin degrees. So what is important about this is that when you have this kind of temperature, you can, if you have gases, you can convert those gases in superfluidity gases, right? So let me just play very quickly because I don't have much time. So you can understand better, you know, this guy speaks English better than me. He came from BBC, right? And you can understand what is this state in terms of the gases and fluids, right?
There were more surprises ahead. In the 1930s, another strange phenomenon was observed at even lower temperatures. This rapidly evaporating liquid helium cools until at 2 degrees above absolute zero, a dramatic transformation takes place.
Suddenly, we see that the bubbling stops and that the surface of the liquid helium is completely still. The temperature is actually being lowered even further now. Nothing particularly is happening. Well, this is really one of the great phenomena in 20th century physics.
The liquid helium had turned into a superfluid, which displays some really odd properties.
Here I have a beaker with an unglazed Jeran fob of ultrafine froth.
Ordinarily, this container with tiny pores can hold liquid helium. But the moment the helium turns superfluid, it leaks through.
We call this kind of flow a superflow.
Superfluid helium can do things we might have believed impossible. It appears to defy gravity.
There is something always that defies gravity, right? It's amazing. It's something amazing. But this is the most important thing. It has 0 viscosity and not produce any kind of index of refraction and no friction. So we have like a fluid up there because, of course, our atmosphere is based on all these gases and much more. It's not just helium. In this kind of temperature that you achieve this kind of behavior, no index of refraction, no friction, and no viscosity. And then we have something that in our modern age, you can hear about it, which is superconductivity. And let me just play very quickly, and after this, in 3 minutes, I finish the presentation.
No problem. You're good.
The phenomenon we saw here for a brief moment is called quantum levitation and quantum locking. And
It's levitation, okay? It's not 0 gravity or things like that.
Superconductivity is a quantum state of the matter, and it occurs only below a certain critical temperature.
Again, the temperature is very important.
Superconductor is defined by two properties. The first is 0 electrical resistance, and the second is the expulsion of magnetic field from the interior of the superconductor. Inside a superconductor, there are no collisions, so there is no energy dissipation. It's quite remarkable. Think about it. In classical physics, there is always some friction, some energy loss, but not here, because it is a quantum effect. But that's not all, because superconductors don't like magnetic field. The combination of both effects, the expulsion of magnetic field and 0 electrical resistance, is exactly a superconductor. And let me show you how this works. I have here a superconductor, and when I place it on top
The computer.
of regular
Okay. You don't hear nothing. Okay, man, but you need. All right. Well.
We can hear it.
Yeah. No, I assume that it doesn't matter. I mean, the guy explained it. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say basically what all in all is showing us is many people believe that there's a dome, maybe it's a glass dome. You know, even some people on this panel might believe that, but really when it gets down to it, the gases that we have in the upper atmosphere mixed with the temperature that we have in the upper atmosphere being, you know, at the height that we saw that rocket being nearly 0 Kelvin, tells us that we can create that kind of dome without a glass piece, or, you know, a lot of people, of course, we have Chris outside with the domes. But does that make sense what we're saying here?
Yeah, I mean, this guy explained it about the condition for have superconductivity. So that means 0 friction. And for doing that, you need lower temperature, almost 0 Kelvin degrees. So if you go to the atmosphere itself, we have, of course, compound, you know, our atmosphere is presented a variety of gases, as you know. But there is one particular gas that it's called sulfur, hexafluoride of sulfur. I'm sorry for my...
Sulfur hexafluoride.
Thank you, thank
go.
you. And this gas has a particular properties because it's colorless, it's non-toxic, okay, non-flammable, and it's also 6 times heavier than the air. So, and every time that, for example, a volcano is the name in English, volcano, make eruption, it's fill up our atmosphere with this gas, and this gas remain there 3,200 years each time. For example, a volcano make this kind of eruption, right? So you can imagine how much of this gas is in the upper atmosphere. So the thing is, when we're talking about 6 times heavier than the Earth, we are talking about, for example, this is just a tinfoil, you know, kind of boat that is putting inside of this container with this gas. Of course, you cannot see it because it's colorless, it not produce index of refraction, it's not produce friction, it's not nothing. But, of course, this guy can manage that gas as will be a liquid. So we have this property of heavy thing, you know. Then you have another property, it's you cannot, you know, you don't have ignition in terms of fire. So imagine a rocket up there. I don't believe that these things can be turned on. And that is maybe why at certain point they shut down all the engines of the rockets, and they just, via inertia, it's the only thing that you can do up there. But also, it's not allowed for electricity. You can see right now, they put inside, and the electricity is turned off, and when it came outside of the gas. So you can start see where I'm going, maybe. This is also for sound. I don't know if you can hear that? How slow down the frequency of the sound? So in few words, this gas, along with the other standard gases, the CO2, for example, is more heavier than the air, too. It's not just this gas. What I'm trying to point out is that we have this gas which is really heavy than the air and is really present in the atmosphere, and it has all these conditions to not allow maybe for our technology to, you know, operate at that kind of condition. And for finish that, this is a video from the Space Agency from Germany, and they're gonna launch this sounding rocket. They are really small, like 40 centimeters and 6 meters high. It's just really, it's like an arrow. It's like a symbol of, you know, throwing an arrow to the dawn. And the nice thing is that, of course, it's gonna be very fast because it's very lighter in comparison with the space shuttle or all this Hollywood, you know, concept that they supposedly send at 60,000 miles per hour. Look, hear the sound, how it's going to start changing, and there is no more sound. It reached the Mach 6.5, which is really fast. I don't believe the space shuttle can reach even the half of this speed, based on his...
Mach 25 or 33.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So then make this separation, and they don't give us the live feed because they say that you need to pay for look at that. But when this re-entry to the atmosphere, look the orientation, it's like floating. It's like they enter in another kind of viscosity or you know, fluid situation. It's not 0G this, because in fact it's 100 kilometers. But then, hear the sound of the air and look how the rocket behaves. Like it's just jumping from one viscosity to other, and you can see even like drips of water up there, you know, kind to enter in our atmosphere. And then you have this condition of self-orientated. And it's very strange because the rocket doesn't have any kind of self-oriented. They only have the property to stop the spinning, but not to self-orient. It's like something that is belong to nature, you know, that kind of... this is another one. You can hear how it's like a boat splash entering the atmosphere. And you can go all the day long, you know, looking and sounding rockets, and all behave the same. In fact, I have here very quickly a comparison of different rocket launches, and you can see how they self-orientate, like it being induced maybe some kind of electrical or magnetic property. But the nice thing is that these gases, if you keep cooling down, they crystallize. So we only reach these altitudes. We don't know what happened 500 kilometers up. We don't know what happened 1,000 kilometers up. But if you follow the line, it's going to be cooler, maybe, much more and much more, you know, most high you go. So you're going to reach a certain point where the gas is going to create like a crystal, like a barrier, via nature properties. You know what I mean? It's
kind of like a glass stretched out over the heavens.
yeah, and yes, exactly. And by the way, with this I finish. This is in Spanish, sorry for not translating, but when I correct the lens, this is a Foxy rocket from NASA. It was launched, I believe, 2016. And when I correct the lens of this rocket, based on the straight line of the shadow and the poles and the classical structure in the picture, and I put it straight, and the rocket reached supposedly the normal information of NASA is 250 kilometers. You can see, let me just skip forward, you can see a straight line in the horizon. So this is not just 30 kilometer stratospheric balloon, this is a sounding rocket at 250 kilometers. And the horizon is still level, and rise up to your eye level, in this case the camera, and it's completely flat. So how you explain that in the heliocentric model? There you have the official camera, and this is the correct one. And even in the official camera, at a certain point, you're going to have this straight line, which is, you know, technically, is, for me at least, in my opinion, is not much with the heliocentric model. So this is all I got, and thank you for the time.
That's excellent, Eric.
And I think that, you know, these two definitely have taught me a lot about the electromagnetic nature of the world, and it's everywhere. It is everywhere that we, you know, exist, that this is what we have to deal with. And I think when you really look at what science has done is they've put all this importance on what a lot of us believe is incorrect, and that's gravity, right? If you take gravity, I've talked about it before, but I just don't think that there's a force that's pulling things down to the ground. I think things have their own density, which makes them fall. But I think, don't you agree that they need gravity so much because they need the globe? And if it wasn't for the globe, right.
Terribly.
And they use for everything, for orientation, for attachment, for, for everything. They use for everything.
Yeah, it's terribly, and not only that, to even think for a minute that gravity, even at the masses that we're talking about, has enough pulling power to literally hold, something the size of the Earth around a rotation around the sun, or the ISS mass, especially at the speed that it's going. It's absurd, but they have to use that for everything, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, when you look at like things like Halley's Comet and how it goes out for 75, 80 years and comes back, and ironically somehow it just misses the sun instead of going directly into it. I mean, there's just so many problems with it. It's you know, all they do is backpedal and you know, make excuses consistently. So if we could, guys, if you want to get lined up, I guess, on each side, and we'll take a few questions before we run out of time. And I guess Jeran is going to go out there.
Yeah, I'll do it.
You
If
wanna do it?
anybody
Okay.
has any questions for, let me get out of the way of that, for any of us or for Douglas, I see you. Nope. Yep. Go ahead.
I have a question about the, I'm sure you're all aware of this recent thing about the Encyclopedia Americana from 1956 or something. And in that book, they say that there's a dome in Antarctica, and they give these specific coordinates, I think. So I'm just wondering, how legitimate do you guys think that is?
I can answer it from at least a mainstream perspective, and what that is that if you talk about a mountain range, they call those mountains. When you just have one peak that's not part of mountain ranges, that's called a dome. So I'm just giving you the mainstream opinion of that. I don't necessarily think that that's what was written in there. I don't think it's telling us about the physical dome above us. I think it's talking about a specific mountain, but what do you guys think?
No, I agree with Jeran. I think that article was referring to actually the topography, not actual dome over the potential dome over our Earth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But on the other hand, I also think that, you know, there were certain reports, like when Admiral Byrd went down there, you know, to do some of his missions down there, and there were reports that actually made it into, I think, some of the Argentinian, maybe Peruvian newspapers, that some of the airplanes were actually flying and hitting something in midair. And it was assumed at the time that Hitler had perfected his shielding technology. Now, whether that was the case, which I doubt, or they were actually hitting a dome, and maybe, who knows, maybe that was where that reference originally came from, and then they kind of backpedaled and said that, well, we're going to call it multiple mountain ranges a dome to kind of, you know,
Camouflage.
camouflage it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't know, but, you know, those are just some possibilities I've thought of. So. Okay.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeran. My name is Chip Bemis from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and my question kind of segues from, or stems from, Cammie and Zach's presentation earlier today. One of the things I'm curious about, it's the dome. The dome brings people to
Crazy.
this more. I mean, if you can't recognize there's a dome there and have to question everything, you're lost, I think. One of the things I'd love to see are stars, even in this image behind you. These high altitude shots, I'm never seeing stars. Something else I'm never seeing is the sun and the moon together. I never see them close in proximity to one another. I don't know why, but I'd love to see that somehow. The dome itself, I'm so happy that you brought this up. This was my question for Mark Sargent this morning, but I didn't get to. But I got his card, you know, I got that card. The question is this: how high do we suppose that is? Because 120 kilometers is what that video just showed when that rocket embedded itself into something. One of the things that really sent my mind reeling almost 2 years ago now. But when I see 120 miles and I compare that as a ratio to what I'm seeing on Chris's model behind you, 120 kilometers across, say, the state of Arkansas, where I'm from, is a tiny fraction of that model that I'm looking at. So if I was to turn that vertically and look at it up and down, it's the models that we're seeing, the snow globes, are much higher representations of what we're seeing optically through these shots. So the stars, the sun and the moon, and does that mean that the firmament is possibly very, very thick? And when I see temperatures like what you're talking about, is that not like the Bifrost? And,
Yeah.
And one last thing, when I saw that, Iru, thank you so much. When I saw that liquid, I had to ask Justin, did I just see liquid moving through a solid?
Well, it's a contradiction in the standard model, because if just is water outside the rocket at that supposedly temperatures in the vacuum of space, they still have water, stick to the outside of the rocket, or maybe some change of temperature that produce that. I don't know.
The first thing I thought of when I saw that was someone that referred to himself as living water appearing in a room through a solid wall. It's just what I thought of instantly, and I'm so sorry I took so much time.
All right, so yeah, let's try and keep it to the questions. But to answer that, there is a lot of evidence, in my opinion anyway, for something being up there at around 100, 120 kilometers. We just saw what happened with the Go Fast rocket. Also, when you look at sprites and elves, and this kind of vertical upward lightning discharge, they seem to flatten out at an altitude.
Dominic bombs also.
Yeah, exactly.
High altitude explosions, 80 kilometers, 90 kilometers.
Yeah, right up in that zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and then when you deal with things like in the firmament, like for example, some people have triangulated, the sun and the moon, and essentially it comes out to be 3,000 miles. But what we have to take into consideration there is that what we're seeing when we see the sun and the moon is an apparent position. And this is caused by a multitude of factors. It could be partially because of the sulfur hexafluoride. It could also be part of this personal atmospheric dome caused by our own atmosphere as part of it. Or, there could be this crystalline structure. It's really hard to say, but all of these things can easily combine to give us an apparent position, which, ultimately can be quite illusory. So thanks for that question. That was good.
Yeah, and in fact, I never pronounced well Kelum. Dwayne? Dwayne Kelum.
Dwayne Kellum, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to Dwayne Kellum. He's here.
Man, you are awesome work. And he showed us the start at, high, about 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers. He could, film the stars. But supposedly, if you heard about Dr. Lehman, that he's a specialist in radiation and things like that, he talks about that if you don't have atmosphere, you don't have a medium, you cannot see light in space. So maybe a sounding rocket with a special camera can show us the stars at that altitude, but the only thing that you see at that altitude is just the sun and the moon, and there are really powerful sources of light, of radiation, but we are still inside of our container. So maybe that is why we can see it. More than that, that is my opinion.
And
right
the
now.
astronauts give varying testimonies on whether they see stars in the sky or not. So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They still haven't figured that one out.
But then again, and of course, last thing would be, we know that it is ridiculous to assume that we can have an atmosphere that is 14.7 psi at sea level next to a 10 to the negative 17th torr vacuum. That is absurd in many ways, and that tells us that, me anyway, that there's got to be a container to have that pressure. So all these things combined, it's pretty good evidence, I think. So
yeah, and the last thing would be too, I think what he was talking about is a lot of us get confused because of all the models that we've seen of the sun and the moon, even the flat Earth, sun, moon, and zodiac clock app. You owe me $1. Even if we're talking about that, obviously the sun and the moon that we put on that app, or that Dave put on that app, has to be much larger than it would ever be in reality, right? I think that the numbers come back at, some people have said 32 miles in diameter. So think about a sun that's 32 miles in diameter on that model there. It would be about the size of those little tiny lights that are going around.
They're still trying to figure out if the light is a particle or a wave. I mean, they are obsessed with light because it's not we don't understand, but the light you see inside of the lamp is not the light itself, it's the gas that is inside of the lamp. It's the gas that is being excited. It's not the actual light. You cannot see light. There is nothing at light. The light doesn't exist at all. There is no speed of the light. That is the speed of Lucifer. It's the Lucy speed. It's that terminology that they use. But you don't have speed of light. Every measurement that we do is inside of our world, and you need to fight with the resistance of the air or some kind of medium always. You cannot achieve those supposedly magical speed and things like that. You need a medium to produce light. Always, you need a gas to produce light.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, next question.
I don't know if you're going to get any feedback there.
Yeah, as far as the helium thing, I used to lean towards that a lot, and then helium hydride might be a better choice. We know mainstream science talks about helium and hydrogen. They're the two most copious elements in the universe. That would solve that right there. Which brings me to my main point. With the amount of division in this world, thousands of years, all we've been talking about is religions against each other, religions against science, science against government. Could not this movement be the thing that makes the first step in trying to find common ground with mainstream science and really focusing on that? Like, there's an example right there, helium hydride. If that is the superfluid in space, it solves their question about what makes up the most of the universe, and it solves our problem. You see how we could kind of make that move?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Well, as far as, I guess I'm not entirely understanding the question, but I mean, as far as common ground and...
I see all the exact same problems you're all seeing. I see the lies, I see all that stuff. Can we ignore some of that and start establishing common ground in some way?
Well, I would certainly hope that we could, because, that's one of the things. It kind of reminds me of this video that I saw on YouTube about how everybody has their own opinion and everybody's this big comment warrior, and it really got pretty ridiculous. And so I think people are really more kind of attuned to their own opinions, and it's unfortunate because this anonymity in the world has kind of, separated us, and we don't see those other faces out there, and we're not seeing, other people, right? So in a lot of ways, I think the internet has divided us in a way that it makes it very difficult to find common ground. But I think that, situations like this where people are actually, meeting face to face, and it's a lot easier to find common ground, especially in person. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but Ben, maybe any thoughts on
Just
it?
one thought I have is that this grassroots scientific movement that we're a part of right now is much different than anything we've ever seen throughout history.
Yeah.
Before, it's always been top down. The cabal that runs things, they've been telling us what we need to study, what we need to think. So everything we're doing now is just all groundbreaking. And so I hope that we maintain the grassroots level, that every single person here, if you can think up a good idea, you could get that to us. And that we can go out there and test it and promote it and build on it. I'm excited for it. I hope that we don't ever have that established again where everything's told from us from top down, but that we work it out as a community, as a grassroots movement, and that we always remain that independent.
All right,
Yeah.
very good. Okay, do we have time for one more question?
Yeah,
maybe?
one more.
All right, let's do one more.
Hello, my name is Chad. I have a couple things I wanted to throw at you and see what you guys say about how we got here with this flat earth. So first off, I am an atheist, and I kind of got that way because I was against all of the control, all of the here's how to live, here's the rules that were written, and you got to question that, and that's how I got there. Then I get into flat earth because that same free me mentality, and there's a lot of Christianity, a lot of Bible, a lot of go to the book that says we got here, but then on the same note, we're saying the science book in the classrooms are what we're kind of against, if this is making sense. So I'd like your, I guess, feedback on how I'm trying to free the shackles of what I was taught to read in a book of how we all got here. I get to a lot of the flat earth community is kind of on the Bible side of things, which is understandable, especially when you're kind of going against what we've been taught our entire lives, which is all the same mentality in my head. But that's kind of what I wanted some, I guess, back and forth on. So I'm kind of trying to get away from the, here's how it was, read this, and this is how it's always been. Reading that book from 1,000 years ago, which has hundreds of books removed, et cetera, how can we connect these things and how are we properly freeing our mind if we're going back to Bible mentality of that's what it was always done, that's what we read, and that's what you have to go look back to. On the second point, couldn't we just simply, to prove this flat earth model, take a boat ride around the equator, measure that. If you go more northern, take a boat ride around, it should be a smaller circumference. If you go south of the equator, take a big boat ride around and measure that and be much bigger than the equator in terms of circumference. I've always thought that, want to know what you guys think.
Can I answer the first question?
Absolutely.
I am a Bible believer and I am a Christian. But I understand where you're coming from. I still think, even though I believe that the Bible supports the flat and stationary earth, I still think that the flat earth needs to be founded on observations, testing, the grassroots movement. That keeps it so that flat earth doesn't just become another religion that can be controlled. It's by the grassroots movement that's free, that even you could go out and come up with a new experiment or something. And so that's my personal feelings about it, that we still need to maintain a basis on observations and experiments that every single person here can perform. And
I think that's the great thing about YouTube, is that you have all those options to you. You know, there is channels like mine where you just won't hear me talking much about it, and because for the exact reason that Ben just said. And there's channels out there that you can watch that do follow Christianity, and we can all come to it together because we're all seeing the same thing, right? So I think it is, you know, available. As far as your idea about taking a boat, I mean, if you look at just the map there, there's really no path that a boat could take, and then also you can't keep a boat going straight.
And you have restrictions in terms of military and government. It's not so easy to take a plane or a boat without, you know, I mentioned this in the press conference. You need a passport to get out of a country. And you need to pass over thousands of, you know, policemen and register and, you know, trying to imagine that, okay, we're going to take a boat and just ship it, you know, just leave the coast without permission or without even being detected in the radar. So, I mean, it's, for me at least, it's not so easy to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. And let me just address my, because I think like the guy, I can't remember your name, sorry. But in terms of a spiritual, you know, that question, after all, the mainstream science and any science out there or any religious out there trying to ask the most fundamental question, why we are here, who put us here, what we need to do here, you know, that is really, really hard and difficult question because nobody's going to tell you. No book, no science, no religions, you know, you can think in terms of breadcrumbs, you know, you can find information here, information there, and trying to combine, of course, all the institutions trying to confuse you, that's for sure. And in my personal experience, I became, I was also an atheist. I became, you know, I was baptized when I was young, blah, blah, blah. Then I started doubt about the church and the Vatican and institutions, so I get out and I became an atheist without knowing that atheist is the sun god in some culture. So when you became an atheist, you became a worship of Athos, which means the worship of sun. That is why we are inside this heliocentric model. You're never going to be an atheist. Or you believe in the Big Bang cosmology, or you believe in you are, you know, created by some kind of intelligence. And something that for me was really impressive and wake me up about the spiritual ground was when I have my first out-of-body experience at the age of 21 years old. And after that, I started looking and say, okay, this is not all. When you die, you not really die in terms of how the mainstream science tell you or the religious institution tell you. So I started looking into that, and I know there is some taboo about this topic because you're going to have a lot of information, but the best thing is experience for yourself and be aware. You can have bad experience and good experience. And after all, you need to get back to the source. You know, after your life, you're going to die. That's sadly for everyone here. But I mean...
Sorry to tell you, in case you didn't know that.
The thing is...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I was...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But the thing is, the main institution trying to get away of that experience in that plane of existence. And some other information trying to bring you to that experience. Of course, you can have bad experience. It's the same thing that you walk outside, you're gonna find nice people and bad people, but you cannot live inside your house because you're afraid what is going to find out there. And for me, that is the same thing, and I really recommend. I know there is a taboo topic, you know, get outside of your body. I don't invoke any kind of deity or you know, I don't say for Saint Germain, no. I use my own mantra, if you want to think that way, and that is what something that woke me up so quickly and you know, I don't know.
Yep. All right, they told me we got to finish, so that's been Globebusters, everybody. Thank you for enjoying that.
Thank you.